You feeling stuck lately? Like life's passing you by? Get to know M.A.Y.A.
Acronym My Ambition, Your Ambition.
Reconnect with your dreams, your goals, your ambitions. Find your motivation and start to live the life you desire. Explore the M.A.Y.A. My Ambition, Your Ambition podcast at M.A.Y.A.com.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to episode 58. I slacked a little, but I'm still back on point. I'm trying. But this one is kind of a continuation from 57 about let's get real. So this episode's Let's Get Real is let's get real about talking about living your truth. This is one that I think can really resonate with a lot of people because you're going to be like, been there, done that, been there, done that. Okay. Let's not keep repeating the same behavior, but not getting the outcome that we so desire from our lives. So, of course, this falls right in line when I say, M.A.Y.A., My Ambition, Your Ambition is the podcast that looks to help you embrace salient topics related to mental wellness, which isn't just about mental health, because mental wellness overarches every aspect of your life, whether it be private, professional, friend relationships, significant others, children, parents, the whole 9 yards. Mental wellness is the foundation that you build upon. And how solid it is will definitely affect how happy you are within those really important relationships that you have. So I try to be fresh and forward thinking with this, with my perspective, but the podcast seeks to focus on helping you to pull back that veil of self-doubt and self-sabotage that plagues so many of us in our lives all the time. And we lose the ambitions that we're truly seeking. Well, I want to help you to identify those ambitions again, harness the motivation to help you to yield the satisfaction for the success you seek in your everyday life. So that's what M.A.Y.A. is all about. If you are a first-time listener, welcome aboard. I always say buckle up for safety because occasionally it can be an unexpected bumpy ride. I may say something that might, bring up a memory or a thought or bring up an emotion. And that's what the work is really about here is sometimes it might make you a little uncomfortable because in order to get comfortable and the right version of ourselves that we want to be, we have to get uncomfortable. Of course, if you are a returning listener or viewer, well, welcome back. You are more than familiar with how we get down here. Seriously, I always say, hey, find that place that you can be comfortable, listen to the podcast. If you're front and center when it's debuting, great. I know it's been hard lately because I haven't been consistent as I've been in the past. I've kind of been shuffling around a bit. I'm trying to get back to normal. But right now, this is my new normal, which is not being consistent. So I understand if you can't always be there when the episode airs, but it's okay. As long as you tune in, I'm more than happy to have you here. So like I said, grab pencil and paper. So perhaps you can jot down something that's worthy of reflection after the episode. There's a rule we have here in M.A.Y.A. The podcast rule is that you work at your own pace. So as you're discovering something maybe that you need to work on, you process the episodes at the time frame that works for you. But for now, if you're tuned in, the next and less than 60 minutes are all about you. So get comfortable, find that place that can be quiet, that you can get focused, grab a beverage of your choice. For me, I'm trying to stay hydrated. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. So whether it's a glass of wine or beer, whatever it is, grab that beverage and let's do the work. Because this is episode 58. Let's get real about living your truth. Now, remember, with every episode, I have podcast companions, which means you can go to M.A.Y.A.com. Go to the link that says podcast companions. You click on that tab and you can scroll down to episode 58. And I think I have 3 or 4 things there that you can use to kind of add more depth to the conversation. But if you're front and center for the conversation right now, remember, you can also join the conversation. If you're watching via Facebook or YouTube, all you have to do is type in your comments and I can click on it and share it on the screen. And I'll make sure I read it just for people who are listening to the podcast. Oh, because you may not be watching the podcast, which of course you can see at M.A.Y.A.com. You can find it on my YouTube channel. All you have to do is subscribe to M.A.Y.A. And you can always find all episodes there as well. But like I said, M.A.Y.A.com is a place to find everything in regards to the show. But an easy way to find episodes is iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audibles, Spotify. There's a list of different places that you can find the episode. So if you have a podcast platform of choice, I will not hold it against you. Just make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And most importantly, keep being social with me. I am one of those people that don't inundate you with a lot of posts. I don't. So you can always find everything related to Maya at Maya_Kai. That is Twitter and Instagram. And on Facebook, Maya Kai Presents. So if you're all into getting into the mental wellness journey with me, great. What you'll know is I'm not going to inundate you with a ton of things when you're following me on these particular social media platforms. I try to keep it clean and simple and to the point. So before we jump into episode 58, you know what to do if you're not a first time listener, is you got to pull out your Maya toolbox. I keep thinking of a way I can take this from being a virtual idea and make it to something tangible that people can really like physically put their hands on to help them as they're going through their mental wellness journey. Haven't figured it out yet, but I will before the new year starts for 2022. But the toolbox, as you know, we always have to have our emotional intelligence front and center with every decision or action that we do. And of course, you know, your emotional intelligence, AKA your EI, that is a thing that refers to your ability to perceive, evaluate, and control not just your very own emotions, but that of others. There is actually a process to emotional intelligence that leads to more proficient emotional regulation, which means we are always looking to respond here at Maya, my ambition, your ambition, and not react. That's what's so key about emotional intelligence, which helps you have better emotional regulation. The overarching theme that I felt was so important to use for the year, I came across this saying, and it still holds true. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Aristotle. Think of it this way. If that school of thought was out there, we're talking about thousands of years ago, it should be known and be front and center that realistically, that self-awareness is what drives so many of the things that will make us successful. When we try to be anything else than what we are, the outcomes usually are not what we are looking for. So along the way, if I happen to say something and you're like, you know, Maya, you said something in this episode that I think it's worthy, but here's my thought on it. Or, hey, I'm kind of dealing with this. What's your thoughts on this? You can always send a letter to a virtual letter, that is, AKA, that's my really fancy way of saying email, to getinspired@mayakai.com. So if an episode's got you thinking, you know, you're reflecting on something, how to navigate a difficult situation, or you're feeling stuck with working on getting to that best version of yourself, send a virtual letter with your thoughts or questions to getinspired@mayakai.com. And if you say something that I feel is fully worthy of a full episode, guess what? We'll make it a full episode. But if it's something that comes out of the mailbag, sometimes I'll take an episode and take 3 or 4 virtual letters that I get from listeners and make a whole show out of it. So, like I said, you can drop me a virtual letter, AKA an email, at getinspired@mayakai.com, and I will proceed forward with making sure I answer. Something else that's really important to understand about Maya. This is not me giving you a personal therapy session. It's not. I'm not your therapist, nor my counselor, nor am I giving you direction or telling you what to do. I'm just giving you insight into what goes into mental wellness to help you be able to do the things to get to that best version of yourself, to live the life that you so seek to have. But if you get to a point where you're saying to yourself, you know, I've been struggling with some things and I'm not just getting the answers, seek out a counselor or a therapist to help you navigate that. One of the things I say to my clients all the time is, I am not here to tell you what to do. I am merely here to be a tool for you. You will do the emotional and mental heavy lifting. I'm just here to make sure you do it with the right form. So I said, so if you want to take the stigma away of talking to a therapist or a psychiatrist or a counselor, here's how you should look at us. We are your emotional and mental trainers. Just like you go to a personal trainer because you want to lose weight, get fit, build muscle, and they work with you to do the right exercises to make sure you do the right form to get the outcome. It's the same thing with working with a mental health professional. We make sure that you're doing the right things to get to that emotional and mental place where you want to be. So take the stigma away and say, you know what? I discovered an emotional mental trainer, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're okay with having a personal trainer, if you're okay with, let's say, having a pulmonologist, or you have, you know, anybody you're seeing for anything in regards to your bodily health, why do we stop when we get to our most precious resource, which is our mind? Just worthy of thought. I'm trying to take away the stigma, to say the least. Okay, we can get into episode 58. Let's get real about living your truth. Great saying again that captures the essence of this episode. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. Carl Jung, who is a very well-known, obviously, psychiatrist. Let me say that to you again, because something should hit home on what he's saying. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the mere darkness of mere being, which means to not go day to day without feeling something or having purpose or feeling that you're doing something, whether it's for you or the greater good of something. But human existence is not here to be empty or void. And when we get to that point of feeling empty or void, we have to ask the question, why? And if you always felt that way, it's even a bigger question. At least if you've had moments of feeling you've had clarity of who you are, that's great. But sometimes you don't. So in episode 58, let's go about living the truth. This is why I felt like, you know what? Got to revisit it. Got to let people know. People always want to keep it 100, but most of the time they're really not, because keeping it 100 means dealing from a position of truth, and not just your sense of truth, your subjectivity. It means being objective and really being honest with yourself about what's going on. So living your truth is the process of aligning your core values with your everyday actions, words, and thoughts. The essence of the idea is that it is the quality or state of being true, which means it's not based loosely on a fact, but solid principle. But more importantly, it is the moment, AKA, it's the real, AKA, it's reality. When you find yourself living outside of what you know to be your core values, morals, or ethics, it is imperative that you understand why. Ask yourself, is it because you don't have a compass that points you in the right direction? Is someone or something pointing or pulling you in the wrong direction? When you seek the answers to these specific questions, you will discover why you may not be living the life you were intended to or want to live. That's what this episode is going to jump into. So, you know me, I'm pretty good about working from points of semantics, give you a foundation to work from when we use language. So let's talk about the foundation language of this episode. What is truth? And I think it's interesting because people seem to think the truth is many things. It is not. It is only one thing. Truth is, I always say, a good way to think about how people perceive truth. Think of it as a coin. Coins are three-dimensional, though we tend to only look at them one way. But if you pick up a coin and you look at it, there's a heads, there's a tail, and there's that edge that goes around it. For some people, the truth might be what they feel is heads. For other people, the truth may be what they think is tails. But the essence of the truth is that edge that goes around it. That is what it is. It is not arbitrary. Just an example, but we'll dig a little deeper into this. So, what's interesting about the truth? We're doing our foundation language. Literally, if you look it up, truth is the quality or state of being true, a fact or belief that is accepted as true. That's where people get themselves in trouble. That which is true or in accordance with fact or reality. Truth always deals in fact and reality. So the second one, I think that's where people get into kind of the gray areas, belief that accepted as true. That's where things called social standards or social mores come into point of, this is a social truth. Doesn't mean that it's real truth. We're going to dig into that a little bit deeper. But if you go and Google the word truth, these are some of the definitions that you get. Here's where people often fall out of balance with themselves. When we think, feel, or act in any other way than is based in fact, AKA being honest with ourselves and being objective about people, events, etc., being realistic about whatever it is we are focused on. Hence, you hear people say things like the reality of the situation. You are not working in accordance with being true to yourself. Let me say it again. When people often fall out of balance with themselves, it's because when you're not thinking and feeling and acting in accordance of the way that is based in fact and honesty, and it's real, but more importantly, it's disjointed or disconnected from your core values, this is where you don't live your truth. You're living something, but clearly it's not your truth. Something new I'm adding into episodes because I like to kind of make it like, here's the thing I want you to remember. Episode takeaways time, aka ET time. So when I say, There's ET time. It means we're about to have something that I feel like if you take nothing else away from the episode, I want you to take this away from the episode. Everything starts with awareness. Bottom line, everything I've ever talked about always leads back to self awareness. And once you become self aware, you then can become a self advocate. It's when you really start aligning yourself with your truth because you've come to understand you and what it is that you want to live and who you want to be. So, understanding yourself, and more importantly, giving yourself time to understand yourself. Learning to be objective is key. Remember, that's one of the things in our toolbox. But learning to be objective with internal experiences as well as external experiences will allow you to manifest into being an action oriented person that will think, feel, and act in a way that reflects who you are. Let me say it again. Understanding yourself is key to all of this. So when you take the time, don't rush the process. Because if you've gotten this far in life and you still feel disconnected from who you are and you don't feel you're living your truth, then don't start rushing through it now. Take the time to learn to be objective. And while you're working on objectivity, you need to look at internal experiences as well as external experiences. And these things will allow you to manifest and be and act accordingly, be action oriented. So when you start to think, feel, and act in accordance to what your core values are, opposed to what maybe social mores say, or what cultural norms may say, or what maybe more dominant culture kind of wants to dictate is acceptable. When you put all those things to the side and you really get to the core of who you are and you act in accordance, then that's when you are living your truth. And I'm gonna be honest, in this episode takeaway, ET time, this is difficult. This is why I said, don't rush the process because there's different things that you actually need to navigate through to even get to the point if you feel like you don't really live your truth because of influences over here or demands or expectations over there. Those are the things that will take you off your square. Trying to fulfill somebody else's vision and you're blind to the truth that you're not being you. You're blind, baby. Blind to the facts. Anyways, let's have our first RTT time of the show, real talk time. Maya likes her little, small sayings. And I'm consistent with the real talk times and tool times within the show. How many times have you said or done something that you felt was not congruent with how you actually thought or felt regarding the person or situation? This happens frequently to people. So with that being said, and let me say this, raise your hand to the real talk time moment. How many times have you said or done something that you felt was not congruent with how you actually thought or felt regarding a person or situation? Raise your hand. And if I don't see everybody's hand up that's listening to the show or watching the show, please don't raise your hand if you're driving though. Keep your hands on the wheel, okay? If you're doing anything that would negate safety, if you raise your hand, then don't do it. But seriously, we all should be raising our hands because we've all felt the pressure to conform to what others tell us is more appropriate, even if it didn't resonate with us. Being true to yourself will constantly be challenged in every aspect of yourself and your life. You will find yourself feeling emotionally and mentally compromised because of it. Only when, and this is the thing that often people tend to kind of lose sight of. So let me back this up and say it again. Being true to yourself will constantly be challenged in every aspect. And you will find yourself constantly feeling emotionally and mentally compromised because of it. So every aspect of your life, there's challenges coming at you left and right. But only when you come to know who you are and what you want from your efforts and your actions you put forth into the world is when you have a shift or a change. So if you feel like you do not know, or if you've been feeling like you're operating in the gray area when it comes to like really being yourself or being true or living your truth, let's get back to the discussion from episode 16. See, this time I did my homework. I'll reference an episode and won't know the number. But for the sake of helping you to know where to find this, it's episode 16. Okay? Let's get back to that discussion about core values because in episode 16, I talk about learning how to prioritize your life, that you can focus with intention on what matters and accomplish what you most want to accomplish in your life about important goals and becoming or growing closer to being that best version of yourself. So that's episode 16 that I discussed that. So if you go to myakai.com and you click on the podcast resource section under episode 58, I actually put the link there. So you don't have to go, back to one of the podcast platforms and scroll through. You're more than welcome to. But I put a link that you could go back and listen to that episode. But just know that the key to all of this, having a clear understanding of what matters to you and why it matters, it gets back to that episode. And that episode was about gaining clear understanding and defining and committing to your core values, morals, and values. You do actually have a roadmap. The question is, do you know it, or have you been taking excursions off the destination or the road you should be traveling? And if you are, and we all have detours in our lives, the question is, when you realize you've been on a destination, off on an excursion for too long, to get back to your road so you're not on a road to nowhere, aka cue up talking heads for all my people who know music like that. But it's important. Your core values, your morals, and your values is where you pull. It's your source of your truth. And if you struggle with knowing them, if you feel you have gotten away from them, then you must get reacquainted with them. I cannot begin to tell you how important that really is. So as we talk about and move past our real talk time and just jump right into a toolbox time. When we talk about, really having a way to navigate this, I want to kind of give you a tool, because we're going to always have a tool that you get from every show that I do. So this particular tool is something that I kind of created just for this particular episode that can be used for everything that you do. Hence, I said I need to find a way to make this toolbox more tangible and real. What we're going to talk about, the tool you're putting in the toolbox today, is understanding true north on your core value compass. So I decided that what helps you to kind of know where you're at is, let's have a core value compass. And true north, and using the language of a compass, is what you need to understand about that. So understanding your core values, which I pegged, of course, as true north, only is to imply a sense of direction for you. That means knowing where you're going, knowing what matters to you. Just like with a compass, true north sets the true directions of all other directional bearings, like east, west, south, so forth, and so on. So north first is established, and all other forms of the compass are actual. When a compass is off on true north, that means the bearing that you're traveling, if it happens to be slightly northeast, will be off. This is how, when it comes to your core values, when you start to kind of forget what your true north is and you're leaning a little bit northeast, northwest, or maybe you just went all the way south and you're really off, getting back to the core of your values on your compass, finding out and remembering what your true north is what is important. So when true north is off, like I said, everything else is. This is true when you talk about your core values, along with morals and ethics. When you're not aware or know what your core values are, which means the essence of the meaning and the purpose for things that you do, many of your thoughts, emotions, and actions will be off, especially in challenging situations. Understanding your core value, knowing your core value compass, is paramount in this process. Like I said, refer back to episode 16 if you're struggling with the idea of core values, because if you need to refresh or rethink that, that's the episode to go do it. So I made it easy. If you go to myakai.com, you go to the podcast resource section, I always give you extra things to kind of dive into the conversation more. And I put the link for episode 16 there, so you don't have to go to iTunes, Apple, Google, or any of those things to actually listen to the podcast. But you must know what your true north is on your core value compass. Because if you don't, if somehow you've lost your direction or your true north has shifted, and by the way, it's a natural process. Even in direction, true north shifts slightly every year. And this is why, actually, it's always recalibrated. It's actually done specifically for airlines, so they can make sure they're always flying correctly. So hence they make sure their true north is always on point. Okay, to get to their destination. So for you, it's the same thing. Make sure your true north with your core values are really in place. Because when you don't, this is when you start drifting off and losing perspective and not getting to the place where you really want to be. And that's not how we want things to work out for you, not even in the slightest. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, let's expand the conversation to address what is living your truth. Let's give it some more definition, not just by mere definitions by Webster's dictionary or Googling it, but let's talk about it. What is really living your truth? And let's talk about some simple steps to start or to continue to work towards that process every day, because core values and living in your truth takes work. As they say, anything worth having always takes a little bit of work, right? Well, this is no different. This is episode 58. Let's get real about living your truth. Isn't it high time that you really get to be the person you want to be based on what's important to you and maybe not others? We'll dive into that after the break. This is M.A.Y.A, my ambition, your ambition.
Please stop and listen, because this important message may directly apply to you or someone dear to you. Several thousand African American former full-time CPS teachers were unfairly terminated starting in the mid-90s and continuing to the 2000s. If you are one of those many former CPS teachers who was unjustly terminated, or if you are the immediate relative of a now deceased unjustly terminated former CPS teacher, you may qualify to participate in a lawsuit at no upfront cost to you. Please call 773-580-7183 immediately for more information. That's 773-580-7183. Do not delay. Act today, because time is of the essence. That's 773-580-7183. 773-580-7183.
Stepping out of bed. It's easy to take for granted. You work, eat, play, sleep, and get out of bed the next morning. Seems simple. But if you're one of 25 million individuals in the United States living with major depression, sleep isn't always so easy. Neither is navigating your daily life free of guilt or hopelessness, or having the ability to enjoy time out with friends, make simple decisions, enjoy hobbies, or go to work. Major depression is the leading cause of disability across the United States, and without treatment, the frequency and severity of symptoms tend to increase over time. However, there is hope. Major depression is treatable, and there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Today, there are a variety of treatment options to choose from. The key is to get an evaluation and find a treatment plan that is right for you. Free education, information, and support programs are available. You are not alone. We can help.
It's okay to think you're in a toxic relationship with the world right now.
It's okay to feel like your world is changing.
It's okay if it's hard to find the words to express how you feel.
It's okay to feel like you just want to become someone else.
It's okay if you're panicking over an inability to control your life right now.
It's okay to have trouble maintaining your normal routine while staying home.
It's okay if you're feeling more cynical than usual.
It's okay if you want to curse more than you usually do.
It's okay to wear your favorite tank top several days in a row.
It's okay to miss your job.
It's okay to just stay quiet.
It's okay to be depressed.
It's okay to talk to your cats like they understand what you're saying.
It's okay not to feel the most fabulous right now.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
Whether you're on the go or listening on your cell phone, tablet, or laptop, you can find the show in the iTunes, Google, and iHeartRadio platforms.
With all due respect, I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just search M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition, and get ready to be inspired and motivated to harness your ambition.
That's right. Get ready to be inspired and motivated. Anyways, it's okay to not be okay, but what it's not okay to do is to not take care of yourself when you're not okay. Just you should know, I feel like I've missed some episodes, so I haven't got to point this out, that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So if you or someone you know or love is within that age range of being screened, or they happen to have a family history, please make sure they do seek out proper screening or treatment. One of the things that was revealed specifically during COVID is that there was a raise in cancer cases because most people weren't getting the proper screenings, basically due to resources not being available and a lot of things being shut down. Well, we've opened back up. And so October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So please, if it applies to you, be screened. And if you struggle with finding a place to be screened, lots of places offer screenings for free if you don't have insurance. So there's no reason to not get a screening. And if that's something you don't know what to do, shoot me an email, getinspired@myakai.com, and I'll see what I can do to help you find someone to help you be screened. Though I'm Illinois-based, I tend to be very resourceful, and I can find things for other states because I love my listeners in California and Washington and Atlanta. I love the ones that listen from Russia and Japan. Interesting. Hey, but mental wellness has no boundaries. So I appreciate everyone who listens and tunes into the show. Okay, so we're jumping into the second half of the show. And before I went to break, I said, hey, you know what? So we've talked about understanding core values, but let's take the time in this episode of episode 58. Interesting how time flies and how there's so many episodes. But I said, before we after we go to break, let's come back and talk about what is living your truth. Let's kind of flesh it out. What does that really mean? And let's put together some steps of things that you can start to do and then continue to do to work towards that process every day. Because living your truth is an everyday process. It never takes a break. It only rests when you close your eyes. And that's just to recharge, to get ready for the next day, to wake up and be true to you. So, what is living your truth? Now, as I said, truth is fact and reality. And we have some people who can totally be doing something that I think is off in left field. Like, do you really think that's living your truth? But if that's what you feel, it's not for me to judge. So that's the first thing you have to know about people living their truth. It is not for us to judge. If they feel they are fully in line and connected to what their core values may be. And the thing about core value is interesting because some people, it may be career and money. And hence, that is their true north. And everything they do with the purpose of acquiring financial stability. Not for us to judge. If you're a person where family is your core value, it means the most. So everything you do is within an action to have a happy and secure family. That's okay because that's your core value. And I think people sometimes lose sight of that because they all assume that we're working like in harmony or we're homogenous, and we're not. And when people start to understand, though we have many similarities, but it is our uniqueness that gives our life richness, is when you begin to live differently. You don't start to compare or feel that you have to, meet someone else's expectation. If it doesn't meet what you want it to be, then why do you work so hard to make it happen? Unless you're being paid to do it like a job. And that's different. You don't get to say, this doesn't align with my core value. No, you're getting paid to do it. So no, you need to do it. I want to make sure I clarify that. Okay. So I said, let's talk about what it means to, live your truth. Now, remember, this requires perspective that is internally and externally focused. Inside your core values, your morals, your values, this is where you want to be aligned. That's internal. The external piece that most people tend to focus on more, and it becomes their driving force. And this is sometimes where they get off centered or they don't know their true north on their core value compass, is because keep in mind, we often make choices based on social norms, also referred to as social mores. And sometimes they can be very specific or they can be broad because social norms have different things that are part of their construction. Your social norms may be more social based. For others, social norms may be more cultural based. Sometimes family is a huge driving force in people's social norms. With my family, this is the way we do it. And it doesn't matter how your family does it. For some people, it's actually religion is the thing that drives their choices. So Everybody has different things that may kind of flesh out what becomes norms that drive their decisions. So, what I want you to do is say, whatever the external norm is, does it coincide and does it balance with your internal feelings, the things that drive how you feel, think, and act? So, let's say, for instance, and this is where there can be a clash with living your truth, and people don't think about this. Let's just say, I'll give a really simple example that most people can probably understand. And I'm not just picking it because I happen to be a person of color. Let's just say you grew up in a family where people were very racist. They said ill things about everybody that wasn't like your group. I'm not even going to pick out a group of people because anybody can be a racist. So I want people to think that I'm just saying one particular group because racism exists everywhere. So you grow up thinking that people of opposite groups of you are criminals, they're liars, they're not trustworthy. And this is kind of how you interact with them. So you may say, well, I'll never deal with this person or ever trust this person because of that. But then all of a sudden, you leave your family and you go into the world and you start to have experiences that challenge the external experiences that developed your internal thinking, how you thought, act, and felt. And you say, well, wait a minute, this is obviously not true because I met plenty of people who don't fall in line with this idea. Same thing could be said about women, how women could not be equal in men in regards to being intelligent or doing a job or whatever. And then all of a sudden, let's say you happen to be a man in a position to hire people and your best candidate happens to be a woman. And you're like, can you step outside of that social or professional moray to get the right person to do the job? So that's why I said the challenges. You may get ideas formed externally from others, but what you choose to do with them when you start to find your own truth that, wait a minute, everybody who happens to be a woman isn't not qualified to do something, or everybody who is of this ethnic group isn't a criminal, or we saw social mores and political mores come into to focus recently with how things were running in this country with different presidents. People had ideas that they felt so concrete about, and I was like, is this like a real core value for you, or did you just pick this off the ground and start running with it? But again, it wasn't for me to judge, but I was questioning some of the actions. I was watching people, how they were behaving, because what was interesting is I heard them saying something, but it didn't align with the person I believed them to be based on how they had presented themselves to me. It was interesting. So that's why I'm saying finding your core values can be challenged a lot by how you were raised, by maybe a political group you're in, a religious affiliation. Tons of things can challenge core values if you don't know internally what matters the most to you. Is it that people are equal and I will not judge you based on your gender, sexual preference, or the color of your skin? If that's where you stand, then you may be in a group that feels entirely differently than that. What do you do with it? Do you kind of fold, or do you bend but don't break, but you're far away from your core values because you're in this group that rivals that, or your family doesn't think this way? This is where people struggle, working so hard to meet others' expectations, and the person they're letting down is themselves. But when it's all said and done, you're the person that has to close your eyes at night and go to sleep and have to ask yourself, did I do the right thing in that situation with how I treated that person, or the fact that I let those things make me think like that? You have to sit alone, and can you find peace in the way that you think, you feel, and you act? It's interesting. So that's important when we talk about living your truth, is understanding those internal and external things that influencing you and making you kind of get off true north. Now you can get back to true north because you can really start to reconcile these things internally. Do the work. Do they match up? So how do you know if you are, or if you're not already living your truth? A couple things that kind of help you figure it out. These aren't hard and fast, but at least if you're hitting on 2 of these, then you're not in a bad place. If you're hitting on none of these, you might have some work to do. Seriously, you might want to go get that local therapist and say, hey, I want to bounce this off somebody. By the way, we are the non-judgmental type of resource that most people need. The things people share to me within confidence, I'm like, don't you feel glad that you can just say that and not feel judged? Because if you want to share this with a family member or a friend, you're afraid they're going to judge you, even though people will tell you, I'm not judgmental, I won't hold you against you. Human nature kind of makes us form that. One thing about being a therapist is you come to realize there's lots of things that impact people. And you just ask the why and the how, and well, what do you want to do with it? Do you think it's wrong? It doesn't matter how I feel about it. So, how to know if you're already living or not living your truth? One, if you're happy, not just content with who you are and what you're doing with your life. So if you generally find satisfaction, like you feel good about what you've done, you feel good about how you've treated people, but more importantly, you feel good that like the things that you set out to do with your life wasn't somebody else's vision, it was yours. And you really feel happy, not just content. Because content, I'll say, well, what does that mean? Like, why are you not happy? Because content is here, but happy's up here. That's one way to know. Another way to know is if you don't need approval or validation from others to do what you have or what you desire to do, then you know that your core value compass is where you want it because you're not looking for someone else to tell you it's okay to be you. Like, do you think it's okay if I do this? Was it wrong if I did this? I'm going to tell you something. When somebody looks at me and says, do you think it's wrong that I did this? How I answer back is say, do you think it's wrong that you did it? Because if you're asking me if you think it's wrong, you probably have an issue with what you did. Why are you asking this question? Let's reverse engineer the question and figure out why it even exists. Just putting it out there like that. 3, if you don't rely on others to feel good about yourself, meaning that happiness becomes your happiness, that's key because some people can't be happy unless other people are happy, which I'm going to tell you that's not a good thing because you should be able to have your own source of happiness without having to rely on others to feel good about yourself. So you shouldn't have to have others constantly give you like praise or adoration or approval. You just feel good like I did it. Some people said I did the damn thing. Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. You should get to a point when you are living your truth that you are the person that validates you because you know what you set out to do in the first place and you know when it's right or wrong. And nobody has to tell you that. So that's key. And another way to know if you're living your truth, 4, I put it up on the screen because I felt like it was worth it. You accept that life is imperfect, that you will make mistakes and you may fail. And what you don't do is try to guilt yourself and not forgive yourself for being human. But you're willing to take the accountability for what you failed at to become the best version of you. Because that what they say is mistakes are the only thing that you can truly call your own. And it's the one thing that nobody is ever trying to take from you is your mistakes and your failures. Like, oh, you can have that. That's good. People might want to be in your happiness, but they're not trying to be with you in failure and mistakes. So they're all yours. The question is, what do you do with them? Own them and be okay with them. Hello, Ada Suarez Dario. Hey, C. Love. I know one of your core values is family because I love watching her family on Facebook. And she's such a great person. So we're talking about core values. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. But that's what's key. People have to know that you have to accept that you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail. And if you keep operation from a position that everything has to be perfect, you're only setting yourself up for more failure because you're not always going to hit the mark. And it's okay. Because imperfection within itself is a beautiful thing. Things with flaws can be beautiful things. So don't fall into the social idea that if something isn't perfect, it's not good enough, because that's not true. Not true at all. All right, so let's talk about ways we can work towards living your truth. So let's just say you say, okay, I hit maybe 2 of those on there, but I need to work on 3 and 4, or maybe I hit 2 and 3. But hitting all 4 of these are really important to really live your truth. You need to really be doing all of these, which means you might have to do, a checkup like, I'm not living my truth. That right there, that action, I did that. I'm not happy with it. It's not sitting well with me. Why is it not sitting well with me? Because I did that just because I felt the need to make somebody else happy. But now I feel like crap because it's not really what I wanted to do. Not living your truth. Not living your truth. So, how can we begin to practice? They say practice makes you good at it. Doesn't make you perfect. Another saying that's very disjointed. Practice does not make perfect. Practice just makes you better at it. Just know that. So, what's some ways you can work towards living your truth? A couple things you can do. And actually, on my cover photo, which you kind of only see in the beginning and it passes through, I'll put it back up quickly. This is a saying by William Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. And that is where living your truth and knowing your core values, it's the essence of this. I always think it's interesting that so many philosophers and playwrights and authors, at the core of this, these ideas aren't new ideas. We just somehow keep needing to reinvent them for people to believe that they're actually true. So to thine self be true. It starts with that. You have to make a conscious decision to accept who you are at the moment. I'm not asking you to fast forward into anything except for this moment. Being present and saying, there's a part of me that does live my truth, and there's another part of me that doesn't. The part that doesn't might be because of social issues. Family often is one reason we often fail to live our truths. We often don't want to disappoint, or by living our truth and being honest, it means somebody else, they may be hurt or not feel validated. Now, here we go. Having to work with somebody else. If you've got relationship dynamics that put that kind of pressure on you, you need to sit down and talk to that person like, look, I'm trying to live my truth. I know when I leave this world, I want to make sure the footprint I left behind was, if nothing else, you could say she did her and she did her well. But I feel like I'm constantly having to make exceptions because I'm tiptoeing on eggshells because of you, because you don't want to be open about this. You struggle with this. And then I feel like I have to really curb who I am so that you can feel safe. But then I feel bad. What can we do about this? How can we help to address this issue? Because I can't keep doing it. You may have some people who never want to fix themselves, and you have to be open and know that. Does it mean you have to discount them from your life? No, but you might have to put them at arm's length so they don't taint or keep you away from your goal about being true to yourself. 2, acknowledge who you are. Explore the incongruencies of self and figure out how and why they differ. So you see who you are in the moment. You're being true. You accept who you are at the moment. Ask yourself, how am I not being the person I want to be? Where am I not being congruent? Where am I disjointed? Is it because I'm always trying to please other people? Hence, I'm always willing to put me second. Do I put everybody first and I'm always dead last? Is it I'm afraid to fail because unfortunately I grew up with this idea of failure is not an option? We hear all these sayings all the time. Nobody cries in baseball. White Sox fans, we cried like babies. Seriously. But we have all these crazy sayings like fake it till you make it. Those things are lies. They are only set forth to have you wear a mask and keep you away from living your truth. Figure out if you want to be this and you're not, how do I get from A to B, B to C, and so on and so forth until I get to the person I want to be, and pull all the fakeness on the back burner. Matter of fact, throw the pot out the window. Be done with it. Be done with it. 3, define your truth, AKA take out your core value compass and define your true north. What matters to you? What is your values? What are your morals? What are your ethics? And when something challenges it, your compass starts to move the wrong way. You know when somebody's asking you to do something that's wrong. You know it. Be like, this is asking me to do something wrong. I see it. I feel it. It's not resonating with me. Stop, drop. Just kidding. Don't do it. If you even have to say, I need to think about this. This isn't sitting very well with me right now. I'll get back to you on this. And if people get pushy, be like, I said I need to get back on you on this because this is not really sitting well with me, what you're asking me to do. And I have to figure out why I'm not comfortable with it. So I don't feel obligated at this moment to give you an answer. And if you need an answer right now, then the answer is no. Don't be afraid to say no. Because if people are trying to take you away from true north, be careful not to go all the way south, because then you're really not living your truth. And 4, live in accordance to truth you have defined. Once you know those core values, once you know what it is that makes you want to be the person that you want to be, stop doing anything else because now you know. I will tell you, they always say, knowing is half the battle. Once you know better, you do better. That's a lie. People don't always do that. But it's a great saying. That's the one time I'd like to say, this is true. Once you realize something is wrong, you should do it better. That's the one saying that people say, I'm like, I can agree with that. Because you don't always know something is wrong. Because remember I said, maybe external influence like family, culture, religion, politics, whatever, have been a driving factor for you. And it's more of their core values, ethics, and morals that made you make a decision. But now that you know they don't align with you and what your core value compass tells you is true north, now you can act in accordance what works for you. Hope this all made sense. So that's episode 58. Let's get talk real about, living your truth. So here's my final thoughts on this as we wrap up the show. There is only one you. There's no copies or rough drafts. Just you. And as you are built, as you are constructed is the way that it's meant to be. Now, if you don't like what that is right now, because you are the architect of yourself at this moment. Maybe not in the beginning you weren't, but you are now. You can choose to add or subtract to yourself as you see fit. Some things cannot be undone. Actually, nothing can be undone technically if it's an experience. And it was probably meant to happen for a reason. I know people cringe at that, even the bad experience. The thing is, what do you take from the bad experience? Don't let you own it. You acknowledge it and get the takeaway. And then you move forward. Because when you don't reconcile bad experiences, they tend to creep back up and they keep coming along and they keep taking you away from your true north and your core value compass because they're owning you. You have to take ownership of yourself back, even when negative things have happened. So feel free to make mistakes, to reinvent yourself, but more importantly, celebrate all that is you. There is not another version of you. There's not anything that should be different at the moment than what it is. So look at yourself and be okay with who you are right now and know what you're about to change to get to that best version of you. Because remember, it's okay to not be okay with things in your life. It's just acknowledging it. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in to episode 58 of My Ambition, Your Ambition. Let's get real talk about living your truth. Hopefully this meant something to you. I think it's important because a lot of people right now, I think we can be off our squares. Our compasses are not aligned. Realign your core value compass. So thank you for listening to this episode. As I said, the whole purpose of my podcast is to help you to identify your ambition and harness that motivation to help you to acquire the success and satisfaction that you literally seek in your life. Remember, got to do closing housekeeping things. You can always find episodes of M.A.Y.A at MAYAkai.com. But if you happen to have a podcast platform of choice, I'm not going to hold it against you. You can find it on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audible, Spotify, so many different places. Just make sure you search M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. That all has to be there. So it might be M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition, and voila, you probably should find it on all of those podcast platforms. But like I said, you can make it easy on yourself and just go to MAYAkai.com and boom, you won't have to search so hard for me because I'm right there and you can say those different things and figure out what, episode maybe you want to roast a bit and get through. All right, everybody. So that's housekeeping stuff. So remember, like I say, how do I end every single episode? And this part will not change for me because hopefully by now it's something that's sinking in for everybody. Remember, your present becomes your past and your future is no more. So make the most of every single day. Everyone, be well, stay safe. But more importantly than that, keep being you, which is nothing short than being absolutely amazing. I'll see you all next week.
Get inspired, get motivated with M.A.Y.A and the M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition podcast.
Something that I take pride in is trying to be forward thinking outside the box, challenging myself. And as I challenge myself, hopefully I challenge you.
Find M.A.Y.A on Twitter and Instagram at M.A.Y.A_Akai. On Facebook at M.A.Y.A Akai Presents.
We're going to talk health, wealth, fitness, mental health, financial, lots of different things that can empower you as you seek out the ambition that you're pursuing.
Or get everything M.A.Y.A at MAYAAkai.com.